that the third locus of mix-up is with reference to one's mind. Okay? So the mind, as Satish said, is nothing but series of thoughts. But those thoughts are themselves not just random thoughts, right? It's a highly sophisticated instrument. So therefore, the 60,000 thoughts that pass through the mind can be actually divided in 4 categories. Okay? So the first category is that of what in Sanskrit it means manas. Manas refers to the emotion, the emoting mind. Okay? So therefore, when you perceive things, right, not only you see things, but it can evoke emotions in you. Right? So therefore, for example, you see a child on the street and let's say the child is just asking for some coins. Right? So therefore, this is your perception. But what does it, if you have not totally desensitized yourself, what will happen? You'll have some emotion. What is that emotion?
Pity.
There is a certain amount of empathy. You feel, in fact, sometimes sad. And what happens is, the beggars have probably understood how the whole psychology, right? So they'll make you, they'll evoke that empathy in you, and then out of that empathy, what will happen? You will just give something, right? So therefore, when you see that perception is what? The perception is that of a small boy asking for a coin, but when that is what your eyes report to the mind. Okay? But what is getting added at the level of mind while processing it is what?
The emotion.
The emotion. The emotion of empathy. Right? Now, imagine you keep on telling yourself, and you keep on telling that, if I have to help one beggar, then I have to help others, and I don't want to think about it. And so you keep on giving this data to the mind. Then after 5 years, what will happen?
You won't give it.
Not only you will not give the money, but the emotion itself. You're actually working at the level of emotions too, by giving messages. You desensitized. You desensitized that thing which is given to you by what? Using your own inputs. Every day the inputs that you use. So that's why you have come with this amazing mechanism, but how you use it will then decide how it is. And imagine you begin to then intelligently, and then it says, okay, now if I help this street child, right, and then I don't know what the child is going to do with it, right, then you can find innovative ways of helping the child, because that's true, right? Or you can say, let me help the child in in a more organized institutional manner where I see that they are really helped. What are you doing on that emotion?
Refining it.
You're refining it. You're further reinforcing it and making it what? Giving it a bigger shape. So you can either desensitize yourself through your own interpretations, or you can develop it further. And what happens? You become a very giving, a very big human being. Right? So that means everybody comes with a mind which is capable of emotions. What we do with it is it is largely dependent on our free will. What we understand and how we cultivate that thing. Right? This is why it's extremely important. You can't just say everything is just calm and I'm just living somebody else's God knows what. Right? All these are in your hands, and one has to take charge in cultivating it. So even though mind is not I, please understand, I'm not telling you a message that be indifferent to your emotions. Please understand. This kind of Vedanta takes you nowhere. You have to learn to intelligently deal with your emotions. Even though it's not I, you don't mistake the locus. You don't say the mind has emotion, therefore I am sad. That is a mistake. But you give it the right place. What is the right place? It is the mind. But even that mind needs to be cultivated to understand that reality. So you can't just say, oh, the locus of this emotion is the mind and I'm free from the mind, so let me be indifferent to it. These are all people's additions. Those who don't understand what Vedanta is talking about. Right? So therefore, give it its right place and then you have to what? Cultivate those emotions, because unless you do that, you will never understand this bigger reality. Right? So therefore, how to cultivate even your emotional life. Your emotions are all raw emotions. Like, the animals, they have raw emotions. Everybody is born, a human brain is born with what? Capacity to emote differently according to different situations. If you did not have that capacity to emote differently, you would be considered a mad person. Okay? When you go to a funeral, you are not laughing. When you go to a marriage, you are not sitting and crying. These are all the ranges of emotions that human being is born with. You are not trying to eliminate them. You are not trying to be indifferent to them. You are just trying to see what is the locus of that emotion. The locus of this emotion is the mind, and who are you? You are that presence because of which different conditions of the mind are known. But because you are that presence, because of which the conditions of the mind are known, doesn't mean you leave the mind alone with whatever emotions it has, the raw emotions. Because I am not it. What Vedanta says is, mind is the place where everything is figured out. If you have a projecting mind, if you have an uncultured, unsophisticated mind, that you will never understand this big reality. Because where is the mix-up? In the mind. And where is the mix-up undone? In the mind. So you need that instrument which undoes that mix-up has to be prepared. So therefore, the escapist Vedanta is, I am not the mind, so forget about the mind. That is the most dangerous approach. Okay? But the fact is, it's true that you are not the mind, but you have no option but to cultivate that mind. And even that emoting mind, without eliminating emotions, as I told you, that empathy has to be cultivated so it becomes compassion. And you don't desensitize yourself from all the natural emotions.
So the mind is the tool that you use to reprogram the very object it is trying to fix, right? The mind is reprogramming the mind.
Exactly. So there is a lot of effort, absolutely Preeti, right? There is a lot, you are not fixing Atma. Atma is already free. What you are doing is reprogramming the mind, removing all these angularities and distortions and vagueness and all the confusion that is there, so that it can see the reality without adding its own color.
And yet it's the mind that has to do the job, and the mind.
And exactly. Because unless the mind is ready, that bigger picture will not be clear. Because the mind has to understand that bigger picture.
Yeah, the mind has to recognize.
Recognize the invariable presence which is always present.
Neema, isn't there a danger that emotions can interfere with your objectivity?
Yeah, so that's why I'm just talking about the fact that exactly, that's why you need to take care of your emotions. You can't just say that, oh, I'm not the mind and I'm not the emotions, so therefore I'm that awareness. You need to take care of your emotions. And there is a whole method that Vedanta has to take care of your emotions. Because unless you take care of your emotions, there is no objectivity, and unless there is no objectivity, then there is no knowledge of the truth. So this is how the connection is. Okay? But the fact remains that the emotions are not I. That is a fact. Okay? The second mode of mind that we have is that of cognitive. Cognitive. So this is, in Sanskrit, the first emoting mind is what we call manas. Okay? The second function of the mind is what we call buddhi. Buddhi is that capacity which we call a cognitive capacity. Cognitive capacity is when you go to school and you are in first standard, what happens? You start learning 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Are you using your emotional mind? No. You're using what? Your intellect, that buddhi. Buddhi is the intellect which enables you to understand things. Okay? So therefore, if your buddhi has to understand 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, and you want to believe in abundance, and you want to imagine 2 plus 2 is equal to 100, what will you do? Mess up. It's extremely important that cognitive capacity that human being is given is an extremely important capacity. It enables us to understand things precisely, right? And it gives no place for our wishful thinking. There is no place for your wishful thinking. Oh, I want to live in this whole big thing of abundance. So let me imagine 2 plus 2 is equal to 1000 because I want to be big. You will be deluded. Okay? 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Oh, let me be compassionate and let me be all-embracing and let me just accept everybody, whether the person says 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 or 2 plus 2 is equal to 7 or 2 plus 2 is equal to 100. We all have truth. Let me be all generous and all accepting. That generosity, which is so essential at the level of what? Cultivating your empathy, is very appropriate. Can you mix it up with your cognitive capacity? You can have compassion for the person who is believing 2 plus 2 is equal to 7, but you can't agree with that person out of that compassion. Please understand all these things.
Buddhi is equal to intellect?
Yes,
Yeah.
buddhi is intellect, and that intellect is a big gift that gives you that capacity to look into things and understand things accurately. Then you dilly-dally or wishy-washy will all take you on a trip. Okay, so therefore this is intellect. Precision. That whole commitment is what, this is what it is, let me understand it accurately. My whims and fancies have no place in it.
So mind and intellect are different.
So the mind, so in fact the whole instrument that we have is called Antakarana. Antakarana means internal instrument. So that's what in English you call it mind, but in Sanskrit it's called, now that itself is that mind, which is nothing but thoughts, are divided into 4 major functions. One is the emoting mind, the second one is the cognitive mind, which is the intellect, right? The third thing is, in this Antakarana is what we call memory.
So intellect becomes a part of the mind.
So
Yeah.
it depends how you use the word mind. So as I told you, in English, when you say mind, there is this whole faculty, right? So this whole faculty is, in English you have a word called mind. Now that whole faculty equivalent in Sanskrit is antakarana. Antakarana means internal instrument. Now that itself has 4 major functions. One is manas. So manas actually gets translated as mind, but manas, when we say, we talk about emoting mind. So you understand the terminology, very specific usage of terminology. The second is buddhi, which is intellect. Okay. So there it is that any subject matter that you study, it's all coming within what? Your intellect. Okay. Then the third is chitta, memory. Okay. So memory, imagine this whole life that you have lived, and if I ask you who you are, so how will you describe who you are?
Through your experiences in life, through how you've been brought up, whatever.
Absolutely. So for all these experiences,
You need to remember.
you need to know
who you are.
exactly, right? So memory plays a very important role in you developing this whole sense of I, this entity you, right? Is like, as you said, it's a accumulation of all the different experiences that you have had, and then the meaning you have given to those experiences that will then define who you think you are.
Yeah.
Right? So memory plays a very important role. Imagine if you had no memory. By the time you finish learning one thing, you've forgotten. Then the next thing you have to relearn again. Every learning that we have done is always what? Building on knowledge. Even now, when I am teaching you something, I haven't even come to true nature of Atma. All this is a build-up. But I am building on that knowledge. Does it mean that it's all unconnected? It's all connected. I am building to take you there. And unless you retain all these things that I have told you, imagine by the time I told you one thing and you forget. There will be nothing possible. You can't learn anything, because every knowledge that you gain is what? It's a build-up on the existing knowledge. Okay. Memory is a very essential part and you can't eliminate. That's why anybody who gives you an advice, be in the present. They don't know what they are talking about. Because do they mean that they are asking you to eliminate the memories? Don't think about the past. Everything that you have learned in the past, you have to use. Bring to your understanding to make decisions. If you eliminate all the memories, you will be like a blank slate. You have no knowledge based on which you can make decisions. These kind of advices are so futile. Don't worry about the past and don't worry about the future. What? You will be like a vegetable walking around with blank slate. Memory is so important. Everything, all this I'm talking and you're able to understand is because what? To a certain extent your mind is what? Cultivated by everything that you have studied before. This is all part of your memory storage.
And your experiences also.
And your experiences, exactly. All the memories of your experiences that you are carrying within you, I'm using all of that to make you see something more. Okay? Memory is extremely critical. But What is then the problem? Generally what happens is, one event happened in my life
And dwelling on
and I
That
keep
becomes the
on
focus.
playing the tape again and again and again. 20 years have passed
still stuck on that.
from the
tape.
time that thing has happened, and in my mind what? The tape is still going on and I'm suffering. And where do I attribute that suffering? To that person. But actually what is the cause of that event is long gone. You are carrying it in your mind.
The other person's already forgotten.
Exactly.
Remember what to do.
Absolutely. So there is a very simple and very nice story, which is, as a child, I used to love this story, which is actually a funny story. Right? So one person had gone to a wedding banquet. So they were served food, right? Like in old times, you sit there and people come and they serve you and stuff like that. So everybody was being served, and one man who was sitting next to the other, everybody was served the entire papadam, and he was served half, right? So when he was served only half papadam, then he was so hurt, and he was like, oh, I'm insulted by this person, to the host. He's serving everyone this full papad, and what? He's serving me only half papad. So he carries that whole memory of, this revenge. Now I have to show this person, how he has been so rude to me and has done all this, which is totally unacceptable. This is an insult. Right? So he carries it and I said, okay, now I have to show him a lesson. So now he doesn't have enough money to, have a banquet and serve the other person
The half papad.
half papad.
Quarter.
Exactly. So he works extremely hard and gathers all this money, and he said, like, now I'm really waiting for this day that I can gather enough money, and then, I can have a very nice dinner, and then I will serve him. So that will serve him right? So he does it for 15 years, he works really hard, and then he calls everybody for dinner, right? And very purposely he gives him half papad. Now for this person, he didn't even notice. And he didn't even notice, and then it's like, the whole thing is over, and he thought that, he was watching the expression, and for this person it's a non-event. It's a non-event. So at the end, he goes and he says, you know what? You served me. Aren't you upset? He said, about what? He says, didn't you notice? I said, notice what? So like everybody else was served this full papad, and I was served only half. And the whole event I did to serve. So this is how we carry things. We carry things, and there is some truth, right? We are not all mad people. There is some truth to it, but we give it what? A huge magnification. And then so many of our activities are then decided by it, and our mental time is taken up by it.
And torture for yourself.
And torture for yourself. Right? So therefore, that's why that memory, can you now say, because it does all this, I have to eliminate the memory? Can you say that? No. The same memory, it's a tool. The same memory will serve you tremendously, right? When you're learning things. And the same memory can create a havoc for you. Can you call memory bad? No.
What you do with it.
Exactly. Memory is memory. This is how the brain is programmed. To store information, which can be extremely useful. Brain cannot function. Ask the people who have Alzheimer's. Ask. They forget what their own sons, they forget their own relations, they forget how to open the door. It's just incredible.
But the most thing you remember is emotionally together with this, what is happening, no?
Exactly.
The neutral and the emotional, the how you bewerten, how you say it's good or bad. This is combined. And this is what is stored in your memory.
Everything is stored in your memory, as I told you, right? The events like this half papad is stored in your memory, and all the physics that you have learned is also stored in your memory, and the language that you have learned is stored in your memory. Your memory stores everything. Don't think it's only this emotions that it stores.
No, what I mean is, if it's together with an emotion, you remember it more.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
The other things you don't remember often.
Not necessarily when you go to school, right? And you have to study, for example, advanced, you are studying E is equal to mc squared after studying all the undergraduate physics and masters in physics. It's nothing to do with your emotions. It's storing and it's able to follow and it's able to build up on that.
No, what I mean is, you can remember more the things you really get
More
interested
easily.
in.
There's some memories that stick due to emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Or interest.
What we love, we will remember more.
That's
True.
That's
The other thing you forget.
Absolutely. True. That's a very good point. It's a selective memory, right? It's
Yeah.
true. You don't
remember
you don't remember.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's true. That is true. So that means you are right, that everything, even now, for example, everything that you have learnt in school, you don't remember. But some subject which you had
enjoy, you
interest
will
in,
remember it.
that is
Or the teacher that you enjoy, you will remember her as
Yeah.
opposed to the teacher
Or the
that
teacher you didn't like, you would still remember that.
Yeah, and then you associate that subject with that woman.
in fact, sometimes what you don't like, you keep on
Yeah.
holding on.
Yeah.
You know. So this person was mean to me, then that stays in your memory. So many good things happen. This is a very typical thing, you know. One child, as I told you yesterday, was told by mother that I don't like you, but it got so many other feedbacks from so many other people where the child was loved, which is the memory that the child is carrying.
That he did not be wanted.
Exactly, that I was not wanted. So that means it's a highly selective memory also. Right? Because it not that the whole universe was telling the child, I don't want you, I don't want you, I don't want you. It was one person among many that the child interacted with was saying, but the child stuck on to that person.
That is because you said the mother was the universe for the child.
The most important person, but you know, there are other characters, right? There is father, there are teachers, there are other people. Yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying, or it could be even father. Let's say father saying it, the impact would be the same.
Because it's the pain that's
It's the pain that is associated with it. Okay. So therefore, memory is a complex mechanism. That living in present is something which is ignoring this amazing mechanism that you have been given. Use your experience, you have to constantly use your experiences to become what? Wiser in this world. Memory itself, you cannot label it as
Good or bad.
good or bad. It's a function. It's a function which is a very useful function. If it has undertaken some distortions, what do you have to do? Refine them. Exactly. So memory is not you, doesn't mean you are indifferent to this entire faculty of memory. This is the problem that people make when this whole thing of I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, so therefore let me be indifferent to all this. And no. Because even if you are not memory, if certain memories hold you, which makes you feel highly inadequate, then that memory has power over you. It will keep you from learning this bigger thing. You need to take care of it. You need to free it intelligently. Then it will be available for you to understand this bigger picture. You try to eliminate it, you are working against the order of Ishvara. The laws, natural laws. Human mind is endowed with memory. You try to eliminate it, you are working against the laws. Where will you get? How far will you get? You will get nowhere. Okay. So that means you need to cultivate that memory. How? Educate it with, so give right perspective. Absolutely. In light of which this memory, which is a gift, will be utilized as a gift and the distortions will be slowly taken care of. Healing. This is called healing. Okay. Now, the third function that the mind has.
Fourth.
The fourth, yeah, sorry. The fourth, wow, good.
They're all listening.
Very good, everybody's listening. The fourth function that the mind has is what we call ahankara. Okay? Now this ahankara is, the Sanskrit word is a beautiful word. It is self-explanatory. Why? Because aham is I, but this kara is what? That sense of I. It's not real I, but it gives me a sense of I.
In English you could say ego?
We don't say it ego because in English, the word ego, for example, has two meanings. It has actually a meaning of I'm proud, I'm arrogant. This is a function. A function of mind, which is, I'll explain to you, it's a function of mind which is when you have an emotion, you see this child asking for money and you feel empathy, right? So, what do you tell yourself? I pity this child. So that means it's not only the emotion, you add it with I. You see that? So that means there is this I thought which gets mixed with what? The emotion which is present at that given point in time. Therefore you say, I pity, I am sad, whatever. You impute it on that I is a thought at that particular point in time. Right? Along with that sadness comes what? There is another thought which is, I am sad. Next minute you go out and meet your friend, and what is the thought?
Happy.
Happiness. And then there's a concomitant thought which says what? I am happy.
So
that means as you go through life, you not only go through different emotions, right, which is manas, you keep on loading those emotions onto this I. Every I, along with that emotion comes an I thought which gets connected to that emotion. This is what we call a functional ego, the ahankara.
But what's the difference between manas and then ahankara?
The
Seems
manas,
the same.
No, manas is emotion of sadness. Ahankara is I am sad. Emotion of sadness is a sad.
Just the emotion in itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, what's the difference between, I'm just asking, what's the difference between Antakarana and Ahankara?
Antakarana is the
Instrument.
instrument, which has all these four functions.
Yeah.
All these four functions.
And what is this one which you just want to say?
Ahankara.
Ahankara is when the emotion is happening, I impute it on I.
So what would the English word describe in that? There is no English word.
There is no real English because ego has a sense of pride.
The nearest word would be ego?
No, sense of I. It's not real I, but it gives you a sense of I.
Because when you talk of ego, you're just talking about proud or, I am better than this one and I am this. But when you say, okay, I feel sorry for that guy or I pity that person, then it just doesn't have to be with just me being proud out there.
Absolutely.
Right? So
it's a whole function.
Another way to look at it is that to see how it works with also with reference to an action that is done by, for example, your hand. Your hand is taking something. So how does this action of your hand get associated with this ahankara?
My hand.
You say, I am grasping this. Your legs are moving in space and from one point to another point and taking the body along. What are you doing?
I am walking.
I am walking. Okay?
And saying the thoughts.
Now, the thoughts, exactly the same. Okay? So you see how it is like a kind of central, like kind of organizer will relate everything which is happening to himself or herself.
We name it sometimes I make up.
Yeah.
Makes a function clear.
Yeah. It's not only the emotions which get connected, as Surya says, it's also what the mechanical moving of the body gets imputed on I, right? There's an I thought, I'm walking, I'm eating, I'm whatever, right? Then there is even your cognitive capacity gets connected to the I. It's not only emotions.
It's the connection of all the three to the fourth.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So that means when you understand 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, not only you understand 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, you feel I'm intelligent.
You feel
I'm intelligent. So that means that one thing is that your buddhi is working, but second is gets imputed on I.
So is it a sense of ownership on the emotion or the action?
Excellent. It's a whole sense of ownership. You feel it all is happening within I. Absolutely. Absolutely. You take on the ownership. Things are happening, true. And this function is also part of the program, actually.
Sense of ownership for all the other three.
You take sense of ownership. It's part of the human brain program.
Of all the thoughts that you
Of
have.
all the thoughts get centrally gathered and you take ownership as briefly
Of all
says.
the thoughts, yes.
One thing I would like to say, just like you say, imagine a life without memory, what Neema has said. Now imagine a life where there is no ahankara. Is it possible? Imagine a life where you don't have a sense of I, where there is not this sense that this entity, whatever it is, even if it's like fictitious or is changing all the time, still something here, and which is relating to the world, which is eating.
It's not possible.
Imagine there is no sense of I at all. So, this is just to point out to you that there is a biological foundation for that. Okay? As human beings, there are some biological mechanisms which makes it a functional, let's say, thing. Like your ability to think also, here this sense of I is very necessary for human living. You as a human being, to interact in the world, you need this sense of I. Okay? Functional.
It's very difficult to say, walking.
So actually the ego is not a bad thing, it's how we've distorted
It's not
the
ego.
concentration of ego that we have given it.
Exactly, that's why I don't want to use the English word ego, because the English word ego has this connotation of being something which is undesirable, it is something which has to be eliminated. Here it's a functional reality. Ahankara is just it's a functional reality where it's a central locus where everything that is happening in my mind gets imputed on I.
Is ahankara also means pride in Sanskrit?
There could be another meaning of ahankara which means pride, but when Vedanta uses it in this sense as a function of mind, it is a different meaning altogether.
But Neema and Shashi, you probably know this more than me because of the psychology of it, that the word ego itself has been blown up because there's an ego and id, whatever, which is good, right? I'm not sure of that, the ego and the id. It is necessary to live, or whoever is listening.
Yes, that's what he's saying right now.
So
isn't
these
it?
are the normal part of our psyche.
It has to
Go
be,
through
but
the set of experiences that we want. I mean,
It's the
But that's what
distortion.
Surya
We
just
have
said.
it,
Yeah,
hinted on the
Yeah.
word ego.
The word ego has been distorted. That's why we think of it as only
the
that.
meaning of the word ego has been distorted
Yeah.
more than.
Yeah, but here, yeah, it's not used in sense of, it's just used functionally. I don't know about the English, because the common parlance, and this is why in Vedanta a lot of people say, oh, you have to destroy ego. We are not talking about destroying ego or anything. What is the mistake? What is that I sense is taken to be the real nature of I. I just have to correct it. I don't need to physically interfere with this biological program of the brain. We get so confused as to what is Vedanta.
I think they correlate ego with arrogance. And yes, you want to kill arrogance, but you don't want to kill ego. You cannot.
You cannot.
Yeah.
You just, that relative entity is taken to be the entity. So now what do? Understand it as a relative entity. That's all. And you are free.
So in order to live intelligently, then all these emotions, everything
You
is
need.
necessary for
Yes,
this
yeah.
form that we are in.
This is what I'm saying, that in
Yeah.
fact from that desensitization, actually not only you need, but you need to cultivate.
You need to come and refine them
And you
and
need to
live
refine them.
intelligently. Yeah.
Because they are not I, doesn't mean that you are indifferent to this whole thing.
Yeah.
No.
You need to feel the sadness sometimes. You need to, yes,
Because it's a
everything.
part, not only
Yeah.
you need to, it's part of human program, you can't eliminate.
Yeah. But you just don't get caught up in it.
Exactly. So that means all this loading that you do, superimposition that you do, you have to learn to undo it. Because you need that type of a mind, the mind which is not a projecting mind, and using the faculties intelligently. You need that type of a mind to understand this bigger reality. A mind which is loaded with confusion cannot understand that reality. Okay, so the mind is not, I is not a simplistic sentence. It is not meant for what we call an escape.
Surya, because I'm a little bit confused. The sense of I, is it created at the biological level
Yes.
or not the mental level?
See, there is not one which is mental and one which is biological. They are connected. So I will give you some authors, some neurobiologists who describe very well. Antonio Damasio is speaking about that. He's a leading neuroscientist, a neurobiologist. He's explaining what are the foundation, the biological foundation for the sense of I. So this is a new field of research.
The mind and the biological level
Yes, are linked. Okay? It's not one thing which is some mind which is there disconnected from the neuronal and electrical and so on. It doesn't exist. There is no mind floating somewhere. It is necessarily connected to some biological foundation. Okay?
Okay, so therefore, these four, now where is the mix-up? These four, which are functions of the mind, what is it? I take it on to I. So therefore, that observation that Carl was making, where he says that, he doesn't like the word observer. So this observer, where does it belong?
The observer is the I.
You think it's in the mind.
The observer belongs to that ahankara. I'm the observer, right? And what Vedanta wants to point out is you're not that observer, which is one of the functions of the mind. You are the awareness because of which all these four functions are known to you. So when we use the word observer, initially it can mean this observer, but ultimately a Vedanta teacher has to release this meaning, right? Because otherwise you are stuck with this ahankara. Yes? you have to understand that this so-called observer is that I sense, which is observing all the emotions, the cognitive capacity, the memory, but actually that is within ahankara, and the real nature of observer that Vedanta is pointing out is not that, but what?
Antakarana.
No,
That is the
presence,
the presence.
the awareness, because of which all these four functions are
known to us.
known to us. Is it clear?
That the awareness is not the observer.
Yeah, essentially awareness is also free from being an observer. That is a good observation, it's true.
I have a little question, a small question. In the translation of Tattva Buddha, we have got there is the doubting function. Manas has also this doubting function.
Yes.
That is right.
So you can recategorize, that's true. See, it's true that
Sankalpa, Vikalpa.
Sankalpa, Vikalpatmika, Manaha. So that mind, there is no very, it's not very clear definitions, but because mind has so many different functions, right? So on mind, it gets imputed this, this doubting. That when you see something, is it there or is it not there? So that belongs to the mind. Then buddhi is defined as nishchayatmika. So when you say, okay, now it's not this and this, it's this. That is what we call the cognitive thing, So that is buddhi. So that same, it is not like very compartmentalized, but these are the functions that they are talked about, because mind has so many different types of thoughts, so you can recategorize them. But the point is, everything is not I. None of these are I. Right? Mind does all of this. Emotions, learning, memories, the sense of I, which is a central thing which organizes everything and decides the response, and even that ahankara is presented as karta and bhokta. That I sense, also on that I sense is what? Sense of doership and sense of enjoyership.
And knowership also.
And knowership.
Karta and
Bhokta.
So that comes here, that karta and bhokta is at the sense of I.
Yeah, it comes at
At
sense.
the sense of
Because then I feel I'm a doer, I feel I'm an enjoyer.
As long as I'm the doer, I'm going to enjoy.
Exactly. In fact, I want to enjoy, and therefore I'm doing something. Happiness is the
So
Purusha.
Vedanta's observer is not in the ahankara, but
No.
in the awareness.
Exactly.
which is
Absolutely. Right?
Because
Sarita what?
say it
So Vedanta's observer is not in the ahankara, but in the awareness.
Yeah. Exactly. Right? So then, if all these four are not I, right? Or our whole transaction is what? My I is all this.
Yeah, with this I transact with the world.
Exactly.
And with this I communicate everything.
So that means every transaction is what? In that transaction, this mix-up is
This is
that. So what Vedanta points out is all these different functions of the mind are not I. Why are they not I?
because they are all changing.
They're all changing.
And you're aware of all of them.
Absolutely. Right? And every emotion of yours, how many emotions you've had up to now? Countless emotions you've had. Right now, are you holding on to all those countless emotions as an intrinsic nature of I? Otherwise, you'll be stuck with all these billions of what? Sadness thoughts and billions of happiness thoughts and billions of jealousy thoughts, and everything will be all stuck. Is it? And you're free right now. Are you holding on to any? Hopefully not. So that means what? Your awareness is already free from what? all these changing thoughts. The thoughts can be one time in form of an emotion. This thought can be what? The cognitive learning. The thought can be memory. And in all these three thoughts, there is one as though the thing which I sense gets connected to all. So there is an entity which is emerging. But that's also constantly changing because it keeps on changing with the corresponding thoughts. So all these four things are constantly changing, and who are you? The awareness because of which all these four exist. But you come to know the presence and absence of all. The observer but not related to the mind. So as she says, it's an independent observer, awareness. Okay.
The witness who is witnessing all these things.
So that's why it's true, we use the word Sakshi as a witness, but this is where what Carl is saying is absolutely right. We use it as an interim word to indicate that everything is observed, but you yourself, because the status of being an observer, Sakshi or witness, is also part of the human, is part of the brain. What you are talking about is not that ahankara, that function which is doing the job of observing. You are talking about that awareness because of which all these four functions are known. Right? Which is not one of the functions. There you have to be careful.
I have a question.
Yes.
Now, is it that my awareness, his awareness, her awareness, they are independent?
Excellent. Excellent. This is the next question. The next question is brilliant. I'm so happy, Savita, you asked this question, because if you did not ask, I would have had to ask. So now you come to know that I am that awareness which is independent of what my body and my mind, which has four functions, right? And she finds out she's awareness, and she's also what? Independent of her body and her mind, which also has four functions. Then he is awareness, he also is what? That awareness which is independent of his body and his mind, which has all four functions. So now the question is, how many awarenesses are there? One. Wonderful, Preeti. So, how did you come to that? The answer is right. There's a problem with answering it right too, because you then have to explain. That's true.
Because awareness is the universal knowledge, or alright, we all have you come from the same source of awareness, but we all experience our lives differently based on the lenses of our minds that is unique to each of us, through which we see and experience our lives. So it's the same common intelligence operating in each one of us, but experienced differently because of our
experiences.
Because each one of our minds has a different lens based on our life experiences and memories that come.
What you're saying is right, but if somebody asks you, why should I even believe that? Right? Why should I even accept that there is only one, which is then experiencing differently through different people? Why should, this is a story that you're telling me, but I just have to kind of, it's a true story, it's true, but you know, I mean, if I say, okay, now it's true, but why should I think it's true? So therefore, Vedanta uses slight logic to make you see what you're saying is right. What you're saying is right, but it uses logic to say that nobody can say, oh, it's your story, why should I subscribe to that story? Right? It says, now you have freed the awareness from what? The conditions of the body, conditions of the mind, which are all different. Right? Your body is different from my body, your mind is different from my mind, and you've freed awareness from all these. Now, if I want to make a statement that my awareness is different from your awareness, I have to find logically a reason to say that. So that means I have to show you that my awareness has certain attributes which distinguish it from your awareness. Which attribute will you give to awareness after you have taken out the body and the mind? Which attribute will you give? To make a statement that this is different from that. You can't. Logically. You can't make, because if you want to postulate something which is other than what Vedanta is saying, you have to give a reason for it.
You can assume, for example, you will say, no, it's located only here.
Yeah. So therefore,
then what is the attribute based on? This location here is based on what? Location of what?
The body.
Okay. And that you have already freed from as being not awareness. Okay. So you can do the same for any, try to find, in fact what is interesting here, you can dwell upon this argument and try to find any reason why you would distinguish it. So try to give a reason why there would be different awarenesses. Where? So one is location, the other is what?
Characteristics.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
which
same.
I have already negated.
So you will give a characteristic. I have my memory of being in Thailand and so on, and this is what distinguishes me from me with my African memories. This is what memory. This is mine. Gone. Okay. Try all combination. Really try it. Then you will be convinced about the power of this argument, which is on pure logical grounds. Really dwell upon that. Don't take it just lightly. It's very powerful. It is the most powerful argument.
Yeah, but it is total against our condition, no? I am one with all.
Yeah, but conditions means that's true. If this experience was not very intimate, nobody would make the mistake. The human beings are not for everybody to make a mistake. What? The power of that experience is so real, right? We all make a mistake.
Like he said, the one argument which you could say, again I'm trying to counter.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
To say that the awareness is not associated with the mind, but is within this. It is like saying I am sitting in an ocean and I've taken some water inside. The water is inside me, but it's part of the ocean. But it's still, so I can still distinguish the water from the ocean.
Okay, so then, yeah. So therefore, then you're right. In addition, in order to answer your this thing, we have to question the relationship that awareness has with space and time.
Yes.
And if I can show you that awareness is not an object within space and time, but the truth of time and space, then this argument does not hold.
It transcends time and space.
Yeah, it does. But I need to show that.
Yes.
I need to show. It automatically doesn't happen. That's a very good argument. That's the only thing. That is the only thing which can be objective. Therefore, now, before we go to and study the relationship of awareness with time and space, let's first re-understand a little bit that the teaching takes care of it, right? But not now, a little bit later. And this awareness, to give you a kind of that the attributes you don't give, right? Location you can't give. So therefore, it seems to be what confined, as Preeti is saying, but actually it has no confinement. In order for you to even begin to comprehend that reality, an example is given. Okay? The example is actually, interestingly, that of space. If I ask you, right, what is inside here.
Space.
And this is why you call it what? Glass space. Right? So therefore, when you say it is a glass space, it seems as though the glass has come and it has divided space. And this has become inside and that has become outside. What is the reality? Is space cut by the glass? There is one undivided space in which this glass is, that bottle is, this glass is, this jug is. Are there really? This glass space is different from that jug space, which is different from that bottle space. How many spaces are there in this universe? One space. And that space is what? Undivided. If it is undivided, why does it seem, why do we give it a name? Bottle space, glass space, jug space?
Because of the boundary.
Because of the as though boundary, which gives what? At the first sight it seems as though the space has become this. But what is the reality? The glass is inside, the bottle is inside, the jug is inside the space, and the space is never divided by anything. Exactly, this is how.
And our physical body creates that same distinction.
Absolutely.
Because it's all awareness, we are just embodying it in our
Absolutely.
systems.
The presence of the body and mind gives what? The feeling that it is divided. That my awareness is different from your awareness. Okay? Now, the bodies are different, just as this glass is different from this jug, from that bottle. They are all different. Okay? What is inside the glass can also be different. So let's take this glass as a body. What is inside, let us take it as mind. In one there is water, in the other there is what? Coke, in the third there is sugarcane juice. I love sugarcane juice. The fourth one, dirty water. All these, so that means not only the physical forms are different, what is inside, which is the mind, is also different. But does the space get affected by either the glass or what is inside? No. Whether it is a dirty water or it is Ganga water or if it is Coke or it is sugarcane juice or whatever it is, the space, does it ever get affected? No. Reality. Minds are different. Bodies are different. But the awareness is free from the attributes of body and mind. And not only it is free from attributes of body and mind, but it's not even divided as many. It's only one. One undivided whole. Where will you put a boundary? Where is the boundary to this awareness? That which is boundaryless, which is all-pervasive. What have you made it through your superimposition? Mind. Your little physical body, your little mind with all its imperfections, and superimposing the attributes of body and mind onto this awareness. What have you done? You're suffering.
Limited it.
You've limited it. It's something which is limit. Imagine this little glass cup space feels I'm so small. Because this jug space is so much bigger. This jug space is so much bigger and always is caught in the self-pity. comparing, jealousy, inadequacy, lack. Can you tell this glass vase, oh, be positive. Look at the people who are even smaller glass. Look at, because with reference to this you appear small. So now take your, compare yourself with that little glass. You will feel better. This is what we keep on doing. We stay with the mistake and we create all these wishful thinkings. We never come close to reality.
Neema, I don't know if this question is relevant, otherwise you can answer it later. If awareness is one, we're all one, but yet we are all having different karmas. We're all different, is what do you say, Atma or whatever? So when we're getting reborn, so how does, that means, are we separate that way? I mean, that's what I was confusing me a little bit.
That's, it's like if one space, then, I mean, your question seems to be, why then this space is confined to this shape and that space is confined to that, seems to be confined to that shape and this jug. How does that happen? So that is a long discussion which will come. It will come. Right. And this is why, in fact, because it gets packaged in different bodies and different minds, then it all seems like what? This, I'm different from you. Right? And then there is some truth, but what you are asking is, why then one gets one body and one gets one mind? And that is,
karmas are different.
Exactly. It actually, it's very easy answer, let me just say. Because of this ignorance, right? As I said, there is a mix-up. Nobody is born with this knowing this reality. Even though awareness is something which is all pervasive, it never gets affected. When everybody is born, how is everybody born? Not knowing this reality. This is how the whole Advaita Bhasyam was saying. We are born with that mix-up. Being born with that mix-up, what happens? We engage in the world as one little individual. And I cannot stand that limitation, so I engage in the world to become fulfilled. And what do? I pursue my artha and kama. Sometimes I use what? Legitimate means, sometimes I cut corners. When I perform an action, the result of that action accrues to me. Now that result of the action either gets experienced by me during this lifetime, or what happens, it gets carried forward to another lifetime. So therefore, there is this entity called Jiva, which keeps on going through experiences through different physical and subtle bodies. So we will see that.
The jiva has nothing to do with the awareness.
Yeah, jiva's true nature is awareness, but because of ignorance, right, it takes oneself to be as good as the body and mind. And as long as that mix-up remains, then jiva continues to experience oneself through different bodies and minds. All this will come, you don't need to worry. Okay, with this we will end. Before I end, I just want to quote, because yesterday somebody made the observation that a lot of physicists who have thought about life in not a superficial manner, but in a very deep manner, it's amazing how much there is convergence with Vedanta, how much. So I wanted to quote Albert Einstein. So he made this statement and he said that there is, this whole universe is what? Undivided whole. We have created artificial boundaries and we have given what our eye sense to one very, very insignificant and limited entity within this undivided whole. And he says, whole life we live imprisoned in that identity.
The exact word Einstein is using, I don't know in German, but the translation in English is, it is an optical delusion.
Delusion.
It could be a dhyasa, okay?
Mix-up. It's a mix-up. So much convergence between Vedanta and a thinking mind. Thinking mind. Okay. So therefore, this is how that where the whole thing is, who are you? Then you are that awareness which is free from what?
Body.
You're free from the attributes of the body, free from the attributes of the mind, okay? Free from what? Any individuality, any connection with individuality. The connection with individuality comes with which entity? Ahankara, which is also part of the mind, that I sense. But the awareness is free. When you understand awareness is free, will you try to eliminate that function of mind which is ahankara? No. You don't have to. You just have to, what is the nature of the problem? You take it as, before coming to Vedanta, you take it as the reality about you. After coming to Vedanta, what do you understand? It's a relative entity which is function of the mind. And I is much bigger. But then can you then say, oh, because I'm free from it, therefore let me be indifferent to it? No. You can't do that. Because your I sense that ahankara is loaded with so much nonsense. I'm no good, I'm a victim, and because of that sadness, jealousies, it's all loaded. That rules the rooster. That takes over. Therefore, if you want the teaching of Vedanta to take the real roots, what do you need to do?
Rectifying the mind.
Rectify. Rectify first, understand how all you have been loading it. And then rectify all of that with wisdom, relative wisdom. This is where Surya in morning meditation was saying there are mix-up within mix-up within mix-up within mix-up. There is an original mix-up and then there are consequent mixes-up. And all thing has to be undone before this thing becomes reality for you. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti